Hello, everybody, on a nice Victory Monday. Welcome to Ohio State Primetime Live. I'm Ryan Stano.
And I am Garrison Gaddy.
Well, like I mentioned, Garrison, it is a Victory Monday. A lot of talk from a lot of Vols
Mm.
fans last week. A lot of talk about how they were going to take over the stadium,
Yep.
how they were going to come in and beat them down, and what it
Yep.
ended up happening was an Ohio State just belt whooping.
Yep.
42-17 in a game that wasn't particularly close at any point. Um, obviously we're talking about this game for a large portion of the show, but
Hmm.
right off the bat, I want to hear what your reactions were to everything, really. So I guess the first thing is, when the game started and you saw a
Ryan,
lot
I'm
of
going to stop
Vols
you.
fans
I'm
there.
going to stop you real quick because there's something I want
Okay.
to do first before we even talk about this.
All right.
I want to give you your flowers. That's the first
Okay.
thing I want to do. I want to give you your flowers.
I will
'Cause
always take that.
I was very skeptical going into this game. I thought we were going to win. I was pretty confident, but I wasn't as confident as you. And you talked last week, and you said that throughout the week you were getting much more confident. Now, maybe not 42-17 confident, but you were very
No,
confident in the fact that there was a chance that we were probably going to blow their doors off.
I was, and
Sir, you were right. You were right.
you know what? I'll take one W for a few L's I've had over the course of the year as well. So I mean, look, just having watched film progressively over last week, there were just so many
Mhm.
flaws on the Tennessee side that I just wasn't ready to overlook. And rewatching games for Ohio State that weren't Michigan, there were just so many positives that you could take away.
Yeah.
And the Michigan game, as we have found really the last 4 years, that seems to be an anomaly. As long as there aren't winged helmets going against you on the other side, they play pretty well. Even if they don't end up winning all of those games, they still play
Yeah.
pretty darn well. And what we saw Saturday was the most complete performance of Ohio State season. I mean, they were
Mhm.
dominant from start to finish.
Yeah.
I mean, 21-0 in the first quarter. That's a damn good start. It's about as
That was a
good of a
long first quarter.
yeah, I mean, that was as good of a start as you could have.
Hmm.
Tennessee just they couldn't find footing at all. And I know you probably felt the same. It was damn satisfying to see those Tennessee fans have some shocked faces there in the shoe. So I guess that's kind of where I want to start. What were your thoughts when you saw all those Vols fans? Because I know we talked about Thursday, and there were some reports that there being 40,000 people there, which it turned out to be nonsense. But there were still more people there than I thought there was going
Yeah.
to be.
No, there was definitely a lot of Bulls fans, and I mean, again, a third of the stadium. I no, that just wasn't going to happen. But they were there, and you could hear them. You could hear them. They were singing Rocky Top in there. I'm not going to lie to you. I might have chimed in a little bit. Love that. I love that fight song.
I know you love Rocky
But
Top.
no, it was I mean, listen, it was much more fun to watch them leave. I was enjoying the broadcast, watching them leave the stadium. Some of them left mid third quarter. I don't blame them. I mean, I would rather they have you know, I would rather they have they sit there and take that ass whooping
Yeah,
after all the talk they did,
there was a lot of talk.
because Ohio State, we didn't really do a lot of chirping back. I didn't do any chirping back and forth to Tennessee fans at all. I
No,
didn't do any at all, which is kind of crazy for me because I like to talk my crap.
well, it was
But
weird. To that point, it was just weird before the
mhm,
game because there were Ohio State fans, and I'm certainly one of them, as everyone here knows, caught in the middle where it was. We know the potential of this team. We know how good they can be, but coming off the loss to Michigan, a lot of fans were in limbo with Ryan Day and how they, wanted this game to go.
yeah,
So that's why there was a whole lot of talk back. But boy, did Tennessee talk a lot of smack. They called it Nealon North, Garrison. They called the shoe Nealon North. How did that work out for him? I mean,
listen, man. I'll tell you one of the funniest things I saw was like they said that it looks like the South isn't rising again.
yeah. I mean, we haven't seen a torching like that since
Mhm.
General Sherman. I mean,
Oh
that's how
man,
bad it was.
oh
It
man,
was, and look, I'm going to start here at the beginning of the game because what really got things going was they did what we wanted them to do all along was they threw it to number 4. They got Jeremiah Smith involved early and
hmm,
often, and he was the best player on that field. I mean, he was
yes,
dominant. I mean, 6 catches, 103 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he probably could have gone for more if they wanted to throw him the ball more, and he probably should have had more.
Yeah.
That awful interception call that they had where he was clearly interfered with, and he still almost caught that
Yes.
thing one-handed.
Dude, he had it with
I
his
mean,
fingertips firmly.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, the dude's a freak, and as long as he's on the field and
Mhm.
Ohio State doesn't have tight play calls where they're trying to get too cute with executing one portion of the game plan that they think they need to win, and they allow these guys on the outside. I keep talking. They've got Ferraris. They need to get them out of the garage and use them.
Yep.
And they used them in this game. And as long as they can do that, this is the kind of offensive output we can see.
Yeah, definitely, man. And there's nothing else I can add to that, man. The wide receiver play was exceptional. Also, G Scott on one drive had 2 big receptions. I don't know how he got that open, but he did, and
It
made
was
2
good to
good
see him get
catches.
open. Good to see tight
Oh
ends get
yeah,
involved.
oh yeah. And then but since you talked about the receivers, I'm gonna go a different route here. The same way I gave you your flowers, there's another guy we have to give flowers to. His name is Justin Fry.
All right, hold on. Before you do that, this comment. Yeah, I made a comment on that before we went ahead and started the show. I know he's representing that
Yeah,
Vols orange. I told him.
listen, Third and Wolverines, I love you, man. Let's get this thing straight, everybody. This is Hope College. Hope College out in Holland, Michigan. But
Yeah, you
listen,
want to
man,
talk about Justin Fry, our favorite guy on this
our
podcast.
favorite guy, man. It's
Look, the offensive line
man,
played great.
dude, we were worried. We were
Yeah.
dead worried. And I was extremely impressed. I mean, that one sack that got turned over because of the face mask. But outside of that, Tennessee only got 6 pressures all game.
Yeah.
156 rushing yards, 0 sacks. And the main guy that I want to bring up is someone that I've been calling for a year and a half to be playing, and that's Luke Montgomery.
Yep.
And they,
I was
they
gonna give him
wrote,
flowers too. He was great.
cool, man, 2 pancakes in this game. He was coming in and out, rotating. I mean, to be honest with you, I thought he should have been playing. And it's not that Austin didn't play good. Austin, dude, I've been calling Austin. I've been calling him bad all season. Good job, son. Good job. You played awesome.
I think Luke and Sierraveld were the 2 best guards. I thought Tegra, he got bullied on a few plays. Like
let's say it. He sucks. He's big for nothing. Like
look,
it's
of the 3 guards, he by far played the worst. And I know we'll get into comments later about what they're going to do against Oregon, but he was by far the guy that I thought should have played the fewest number of snaps. Now, obviously, it's not something that mattered. Overridingly, the offensive line played extremely well.
Yes.
And it wasn't just in pass protection. You mentioned only giving up 6, pass pressures, but the run game was phenomenal. And a lot of that was due to the play of the offensive line. They were able to, we talked last week about how hard it was going to be for Ohio State to run in between the tackles and run up the middle at this Tennessee defensive line. It really ended up not being all that hard. And that also hit some runs on the outside. Travion Henderson had a long touchdown run there on the outside, and even some of the runs to the inside, they were able to get some headway on. And again, that was because the offensive line. Total throughout the game, Ohio State had 156 yards rushing on 33 carries. So that's 4.7 yards a carry. And some of those, the James Peoples had 7 carries for 6 yards at the end. So that's going to hurt that, YPC average. But, by and large, Ohio State got whatever they wanted offensively. And I think a large part of that stems from how well the offensive line played, which both of us thought was the biggest concern coming into the game.
No, most definitely. And with the offense as a whole, I was in a best dead media space. Love those guys. Check them out, everybody, on Twitter, but and on YouTube. But we were talking there, and there. I was listening to them talk, and if you guys are kind of like, "Oh man, we're only up by 11 at half," but there were other people, and I would agree with these people that said this right here. They can't stop us.
Yep,
they can't stop us. And when you brought up the interception that Will threw, or I want to say I don't want to say he threw it.
Yeah, that was
the interception.
Yeah,
that was a missed call. It's a missed call.
Yeah.
We moved the ball up and down the field at will, and we went 1, 2, 3 touchdown. Came out of half 1, 2, 3 touchdown.
Yep.
That was, dude. That was
It was dominant.
Jeez.
Yeah, and
Yeah, and
you
then
know, you talked about how they just go Ohio State went, you know, right up and down the field. I mean, Will Howard
mhm,
was
yeah,
fantastic.
that's
I
what I
think
was
his
gonna get
best
right
game.
next to.
Yeah, I think it was his best game as a Buckeye. That
Mhm,
interception, you know, you look at a stat sheet and you're like, oh, he threw a pick. That was a nonsensical interception that never should have
yeah,
happened. 24-29, 311 yards, 2 tutties. And
over
it could have
10
been worse because he
over
didn't
10.
play like the whole fourth quarter. I mean,
Yep.
it was a dominant butt kicking, and he really turned it up. And a lot of it was the coaches trusted him to actually throw the ball. I mean, that second touchdown pass that he had to Jeremiah was a dime. It was perfect, right in his
Oh
breadbasket in
man.
the end zone. It was good. There was only really 2 throws that I thought he threw poorly. The one early at Emeka where he missed him high and behind him.
Yep.
And then he underthrew Emeka. It ended up being a big play, but if he throws it right, it's a touchdown. Those are the only, and that one's even nitpicking because it was still a
You mean
4-yard
the
push
one
down the
that was
field.
like the one where it was like a really close cut, like it was right off the shoulders, Emeka?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where like he basically had to turn around and the defender was all up on him and he had to catch
Yeah.
it. Again, if it was a better throw, it's a touchdown. But again, that's nitpicking. He was outstanding. I thought he played with a good fire. And
He
I
was smiling all over that place, dude.
yeah.
He was grinning all game.
And I give Chip, you know, we gave Chip a lot of flack and deservedly
Yes, we
so for
did.
the Michigan game. I thought he came out with a game plan, and you know, we talked about it last week. I thought he was going to do that. I thought he was going to come out with a game plan that was be way more aggressive because there's nothing to
Mhm.
lose. It's the playoff. It's the playoffs. You've got to do everything you possibly can to win the game. And if you go down swinging, you go down swinging. And you know, once Tennessee took it on the chin, you know, that 21-0
Mm.
um, start, I thought they got rattled and they just kind of quit. They had a little bit of that run there at the end of the first half, and I know you mentioned some Buckeye fans were nervous, I don't think either one of us were
Dude.
worried because, like you said, they just couldn't
Oh,
stop
and
the
I mean,
offense.
and let's be honest here. They got gifted 3 points
Yep,
off that. Well, we can get to the
awful,
defense. We
awful
can get to
roughing
the
the
defense.
passer call. Oh
That
my
dude,
god,
what are you supposed to do when a quarterback jumps into your arms and
I
you and the left guard that was too trash to block you is
yeah.
pushing you in the back?
And you
Like,
know, even the ref that ESPN hired was like, "That's a bad call. That
yeah.
should not be roughing the passer." Like, I don't know.
Hmm.
Yeah, that call, and then they basically gifted Tennessee a turnover on the non-call with the pass interference, and then took away a turnover from Ohio State with
Yep.
that call.
And
And
then
I'm
and then
glad.
garbage time touchdown.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm glad none of it ended up mattering because they were just
Yep.
so dominant.
Yeah.
So it did not matter, and that's what
Oh, and
is
how many pass interferences is a game?
for Ohio State.
Yeah.
Good point. Zero.
Like all we heard, there was a lot of things that were said by national media pundits, people on other shows who are picking Tennessee to win based off of one game from the season that we played. It was, and everything that people thought was going to happen, and we talked about this, how people were harping on Ohio State more than actually doing their homework and talking about what Tennessee is. It was clear as day that Ohio State was better in the trenches than Tennessee. It was
Yeah.
clear as day. And everyone talked about, our offensive line. Well, now let's talk about Tennessee's offensive line.
Yes, let's
My
do that.
goodness. My goodness, Jack Sawyer. Dude, I have been waiting for 4 years.
You
And
and I
I'm sure
both.
you have too, for both of those two to
Yep.
be on the same page in the same game.
Yep.
And golly, and then Tyleek, the stat
Tyreek was
sheet
good.
won't show it. It won't show it.
Yep.
Dude, he was everywhere.
Yep.
Kenyatta Jackson had a good game. Curry had a good game. We had some execution sightings. That's always nice to see.
Yeah.
But that D line was ferocious.
I agree. I think you would agree with me on this point. I think it was their best performance of the season for the defensive line. They were
Oh, without doubt.
I mean, they were making Nico run all over the place. And what that enabled them to do was sit back in coverage and force
Mhm.
Nico to take off and run with it, which he had to do. He had 20 carries in this game.
Yeah.
I mean, you had 20 carries for 47 yards and then those 2 touchdowns. But when he was scrambling with it, he wasn't going very far. Like his long rush was 14 yards. So
Yeah.
when he had to scramble because there was no one open, Ohio State was able to kind of corral him and stop him. So I thought the defensive line played great. And,
At what point did you know we were going to win the game?
I mean, it was once it was 21-0, because when it was 14-0, it's like, okay, you know what? This is a good start, but we have seen this team can sometimes get tight, especially if you see a team fight back. But then when it got to 21-0 and, Henderson had that long touchdown run, I'm like, no, it's lights out. It's over. This crowd's too into it. It's done. It's done.
Well, since we're talking about the defense, I'll tell you what. I knew the game was over when I saw Nico get up and his helmet was cracked open.
Yeah.
By the
way, and I'm sure you saw this. Tennessee fans calling that targeting. Laughable.
Idiocy.
It's a shoulder pad first. Yeah.
No, don't get mad because your quarterback has a big head, and then Cody Simon came in with his big shoulder and cracked the skull open. Don't get mad. It's okay. I'm surprised you guys let him back in the game because he was on that ground for a good minute. But the defense was hitting hard. Yes. I mean, this game reminded me of the 21 Michigan State game? Yes. 21 Michigan State game when Ohio State was up, 42. What was the score at halftime? Or was that 20? Or was that 22?
No.
It
was 40. It was 49-0. It was 49-0.
Yeah, 49-0
And I think that was actually I think it was 20. That was 2022. It was 2022.
Thank you. And a lot of people say, like Dylan Sampson was hurt. Well, why did he get hurt? Because Ransom came down and hit him really hard, really low. And that's what did it. But outside of that, we took him out the game in the first quarter when we went up 21-0.
Yeah.
That's when we took him out the game. Because after that, you couldn't use him.
Yeah, and I want to talk to you about that because Sampson wasn't the only Tennessee guy that went down with an injury. They had a few guys that seemed to get hit and not be able to withstand it. And I want to hear your take on this. I think the cold really affected them. I don't think they were ready. It seemed like they got hit. Like, oh, it's cold. It hurts more. I don't know. And injuries are fickle because they happen. And some hits do legitimately make you injured, but there's a difference between being injured and being hurt in a big game like this. So I want to know, I certainly think the cold affected them more than Ohio State. What do you think?
It most definitely did. Dude, I played football for a long time in my life. Getting hit in the cold hurts.
Yeah.
It hurts. Like you're tense. I could look at the body language of those guys at Tennessee when you're breathing really hard. That means you're cold. You are really cold when you're breathing that hard. If you like Nico, he had one of the passes where it looked like he overthrew his player. No, the guy short armed the catch. He dove for it, so he had a little ahead of him. He alligator armed it. You're cold. Yep. It's different, dude. I kept telling these Tennessee fans. I even had Ohio people telling me that, oh no, the weather's not that different. I said, dude, I think as someone who lives in the Midwest my whole life, just as you have, Ryan. Yeah, Tennessee ain't that far away from Ohio, but there's a reason why one place is called the Northern Midwest and one place is called the South.
Yeah,
there's a difference.
Yeah,
and when you have that wind chill, which it wasn't that windy, but when you had that wind chill. And it's brisk outside, like in New York, they say brick. Dude, it's cold. And if you're not used to it and you're practicing, dude, they're practicing inside all week.
Yeah, that was crazy. That's honestly, that's just bad coaching.
And if you're going to do that, you might want to turn the temp down.
Yeah. And you mentioned that 2021 game against Michigan State, it had similar vibes where, the opposing team really thought they were going to come in and do something at the shoe. They're coming with a lot of confidence. Hey, we're a better team than what other people think we are. We're going to come in and we're going to show them. And then they take one shot to the mouth and they go down because they weren't expecting to get hit.
Yeah.
And they didn't know how to react. And I think, we talked a lot last week about how Nico was going to perform as a freshman in the shoe. And I think actually, all things considered, I thought he actually played okay for the surrounding cast that he had. because like you mentioned, the wide receivers giving up on routes with that. They,
Squirrel went down.
Squirrel went down. Dylan Sampson went down.
Mhm.
That they had some offensive linemen go down. That right guard was a turnstile for them. I mean, Jack was running all over him. Tyreek was getting inside. I thought he did the best that he could, but we knew coming into this game. Both of us talked about how we were not worried about this defense. They were going to show up and play, and we saw that on Saturday night, and they showed why that since that first matchup against Oregon, they're the best defense in the country.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt, that's the best defense in the country. And there's things like and the only game you can point to where Ohio State really gave up a lot of points is the Oregon game. But Oregon is an elite offense. Ohio State, Oregon, probably bring up Texas. Those are the elite offenses in the country. But then you go and look at the Texas Clemson game. Now, Clemson is not a passing team, but they went out there and threw for 3 bills on them.
Yeah.
Dude, that without a doubt, Ohio State has the best overall defense. Does it have the best defensive line? No, but it's top 3. Does it have the best linebacker unit? No, but it's probably top 10. Does it have the best secondary? Arguably, but I would say top 2. 1.
Yeah.
But and then you have Jim Knowles, who is just, dude, he's been an unsung hero this year, man. He hasn't gotten there's been a lot of conversation about Jim Knowles and what he's done this year, probably because everyone expected this defense to come in again and be dominant like they were last year and really good like they were the year before that. But dude, that was just that was mightily impressive. And I want to bring up something because I was on Johnny Olden's show yesterday, who's in the chat right now.
Okay.
And he said something that is very true. Dude, and it showed again, you can't if you're a team, you can't let Ohio State go up that early. Because it's not going to be good for you.
Yep.
It's not good because you're not coming back on Ohio State when you get down 20 points. You're just not.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Because Ryan Day's going to pour it on. He will pour it on just to make sure.
Yeah.
So,
we've given this team a lot of flowers for what they did Saturday night, which we should. They were great. But there's one thing I want to hear your take on this that I thought was really, really strange that they did. That final drive out of the first half where they were trying to get down and do something, and there was 5 seconds left. And they tried Jaden Fielding out for a 56-yard field goal. What the hell are you doing?
Listen,
I tweeted from my work account. There's like, look, there's a 0% chance this kick's going in. Like, and he missed it like 10 yards short. At least just throw a Hail Mary and give yourself a shot at getting points. Like, what was that?
It wasn't end over end. You had a better chance of throwing that ball in the end zone with Jeremiah Smith triple coverage.
Yeah,
you had a better chance. I would give that a 25% chance he comes down with that. James Fielding can't. And I get it. They're probably trying to give him some confidence, right?
Not with that effect. You don't got no confidence now.
I tried to give some bail on that. Real quick.
Look, we were both concerned that the kicking game was going to be an issue, and I'm really glad that there was no pressure situation where it had to come into play.
Real quick. So, all right. A lot of people had a lot to say about this right here about the Vols before the game not wearing shirts. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone, I understand why they did that, and this is why. But the problem is that you got to do that months in advance. So, like when I was at St. Francis during our right after the season, so around February practices. We will go outside, no Under Armour, no shirt under our pads, just our practice jersey tops, and wear elastic under our receiving gloves because all we need is our hands to be warm. Everything else, that just has to get used to the cold. The problem is, it's almost like when they say you don't hydrate the day of, you hydrate the day before. Well, guys, you don't get ready for the cold the day of. You do that. You do that a week in advance, in advance because you had that chance. But,
that was stupid. But this is a good point. Hypo was stupid. I was thinking that my dad commented on it because I was at home, celebrating Christmas, and we both said, why don't they have someone back there to return it? Because again, what do you have to lose?
Do they know? It's almost like they didn't watch any film. Like Ohio State's kicker sucks. Everyone who plays Ohio State in the Big Ten with a brain runs they run cover 2 safety, 2 over the top. They were in single high all game.
Yeah.
It didn't that was a malpractice by him.
They had some coaching issues for sure. That for sure.
Mm-hmm. And shout out to my guy Darren Talks Ball, and he took it back. But I asked him after the game. I said, "You still want to say Heupel is better coach than Ryan Day? You still think that?"
Ridiculous. So obviously, talked a lot about the game, the results, and everything like that. But there was something happened within the game that I know you also want to get to. Yes. And that was the strange comments we heard from one Kirk Herbstreit throughout the game. And, I had a, word tweet blow up a little bit that it was just strange that it seemed with every comment, he almost wanted to see Ohio State lose. We talked earlier about
he did. He did.
Well, we talked about the interception that they gave Tennessee, where that, it was a terrible interference call. And then his foot may or may not have been down. And and Chris Fowler and the referee that they had on broadcast were like, look, I don't think that's enough to overturn it. And Kirk was defiant. No, that's an interception. That's clearly an interception. And then with the roughing the passer, he's like, oh, yeah, he drove him into the ground. That's definitely a penalty. Kirk's like, that's an NFL penalty. Or Chris said, that's an NFL penalty. That's not.
No, Kirk took it back. No, Kirk took it back because he eventually said, I don't know about that right there.
Yeah, but and then obviously what happened at the end, he just decides to unload on Ohio State fans, and I know that's really what you want to talk about, so I'll let you have the floor on that.
I don't think you're gonna like my take.
Okay, then let me go first.
Yeah, go ahead.
Look, it was a really strange way to end the broadcast for a game that Ohio State, and that's why he was able to do it, because the game was out of hand. There was 5 minutes left, and there wasn't a whole lot more to talk about because the game was well in hand. But for him to come out and just attack Ohio State fans for, their feelings surrounding the program, that, it's specifically Ryan Day and his lack of accomplishments against their biggest rival and really in the biggest games. And, up to this point, I think that a lot of those claims, I'm one of those fans who really was frustrated with how he's handled specifically Michigan, and to just call them lunatics, I think is extreme. Now, there are some, look, he is correct when there are fringes.
He said fringe. He said fringe.
Okay, but then when he says, 25% of the fan base are fringe lunatics, that's absurd. And talk, they want to fire Ryan Day after Oregon. Yeah, you know what? They still might, depending on what happens in that game. But I thought it was really unprofessional to go ahead and just do that on a broadcast. If you want to do that, like on an ESPN show, like, we call that First Take, Shannon and Stephen A. If you want to do that on, Pat McAfee show or College Football Live or whatever the hell you want to be on that's not broadcasting the game, fine. But I thought it was a really weird move.
Okay. Do I agree that it was weird? Yeah. And I think it's weird because it was ill-timed. Do I believe he's right? Yeah, I do. Now, does every fan base have their lunatic fans? Yes, everyone has them. But I'm here to talk about Ohio State fans. Yeah, over the last few weeks, I've spent countless times going at the super negative people in our fan base. I think that there is there's nothing wrong with having high expectations, but even I've heard Buckeye fans say, yeah, we have insane high expectations. Keyword insane. And it's okay to have them, but what you don't do is then lose your mind. Again, before this game now, we're talking about a guy who is 66-10. And yes, I understand that it is not fun watching, or it's not fun losing to your rival. At the same time, I live in a world of reality. And yes, we do know that when you sign the contract at Ohio State, it's in there. You beat that team up north. We know this. But
No.
but at the same time, I am someone who's always I will always try to use reason. So when he's talking about, and let's be honest here, Kirk Herbstreit does not have the greatest relationship with the Ohio State fan base. The guy was basically a failure at Ohio State in terms of beating Michigan. And
There's some other
also,
reasons for that as well
there's
that are a
a,
little bit, yeah.
no. There's a lot of other reasons why, like Kirk, you have put yourself in this position. You have done things that have put yourself in this position.
Yeah.
At the same time, I can look as a fan, I can look at all of us and say, yeah, sometimes we're a little bit weird, man. Sometimes we're a little bit weird. And and on top of that, I will always say this. Like I saw one person say that some Buckeye fans said, they had to hold up their end of the bargain. And I said, what are you talking about? He's talking about the players and the coaches. I said, these players and coaches don't owe you anything. And this is why. Everyone that's watching this show, I'm willing to put my bottom dollar that Kirk Herbstreit has done more for the Ohio State program than you have ever. All of us combined. That guy actually played for the team. He actually played for the program. He actually sweated for the program. He actually bled for the program. So I get it when fans say, I paid for the tickets and all that. Yeah, but you didn't take the field. So while I can sit here and say, yeah, Kirk, that was weird. It was ill-timed. You didn't have to make those comments. Let's just be straight about it. You didn't have to make those comments. What you could have been doing at that moment in time was talking about how great Ohio State played, what was coming next week against Oregon. You could have been actually doing your job, That doesn't mean he was wrong.
Look, I will agree with you that there are certain segments of this fan base that can certainly be extreme. And after the Michigan game, there were some people that were leaking Ryan Day's address. That's lunatic
weird.
fringe. That's inexcusable. That's don't do that. Those are fans I don't really want to associate with. But
you're not a fan.
I don't think
they are fans to me.
Yeah, and look, but there are certain things that you talked about. And look, I certainly don't want to turn this into a negative bash Ryan Day session here after we're celebrating a 42-17 win, but there were legitimate reasons for fans to be frustrated, and it wasn't just about the fact. You pointed to his record 66-10,
67-10 now.
Yes, but he and the players themselves also had put themselves in a position where they said it was a national championship or bust season. So the fans expected that because that's what was coming out of the horse's mouth. If it's coming directly from those guys in the Woody, all right, if you guys are saying national championship or bust, let's go. That's what we're riding on to.
And then also, I think a lot of Ohio State fans, because this is where I want to give Kirk his credit. I think a lot of Ohio State fans expect him to be a doof like Desmond Howard and pick his program no matter what, even when his team sucks year after year, losing to Ohio State for 10 straight years.
Yeah.
I think people expect Kirk to do that when no, he doesn't do that.
Look, I'm a Kirk Herbstreit. I'm mostly a Kirk Herbstreit fan. I think 90% of the time he does a really good job of being unbiased, saying, being objective on the call, and even on College Game Day, his analysis, everything. I think he normally comes up with some very strong, objective, good points where he's not showing bias one way or the other. I think he normally does a great job. I thought he missed the mark on Saturday, and
I think he's emotional because of his son. I think he was emotional because of his son. That's what it is. I think that's exactly
very
what
well could be. You know what? I mean, you could be right, and I know a lot of people pointed to that as well. But I'm interested to see how he responds to that throughout this week on various platforms.
He was on Pat McAfee.
He was on McAfee's show today. Yeah. I didn't catch it, but that's all I really got to say about that. So obviously winning the game was great. That was great and fun. Today was also fun in terms of what was happening on the transfer portal. So we talked about, last week, and, I did my own as well about how it was kind of a slow start in the transfer portal for Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't they didn't seem to be keeping up with it like some other teams in the college football playoff were. Well, today they kept up with it. They got 3 really good commits today. They were able to get C.J. Donaldson Jr., running back from West Virginia, who started for the last 2 years for them, has 11 rushing touchdowns in each of the last 2 years. He's coming to town. And they also were able to get a defensive end from Idaho State, Logan George. He had 5.5 sacks this year. He's only a sophomore, so he's got some room to grow. And then the big one, happened just a few hours ago. Tight end Max Clare from Purdue, the number 1 transfer portal tight end, had 685 receiving yards, 4 touchdowns, 51 catches this year for the Boilermakers.
There was a fan base that thought they were going to get him. There was a fan base that thought they were going to get him.
Yes, there was.
I can't. It's missing. It's missing right now. I know. I can't remember who, but crazy, isn't it? Yeah,
but it is crazy. All of those guys fill positions of need. So one by one, give me your first initial reaction to those guys. So start with CJ. What are your thoughts on Donaldson?
Well, me and you, we've talked a lot about the running back room, the depth going to next year, how it's lacking. But what I really like about him, first off, he's not some guy who hasn't had production. That guy he has a lot of production. He played a lot this year and was pretty good. The guy's 6'2", 240 pounds. I think he was a prior tight end as a recruit, I believe.
Yeah, so, he's a big dude.
Yeah, I really like that. I think that especially for Ohio State's running back room, we have a lot of, they're quick, strong guys, but, like your average running back. I think it's really good that we have a guy like him because you're going to need a guy like him. You need a really big running back. Man, this name it's missing me right now. Who was the running back? This would have been during, I think Carlos Hyde. His brother was a linebacker for Notre Dame.
Oh, Rod Smith?
Rod Smith. That's who he reminds me of.
I hope he's way better than Rod Smith because I got a checkered past with Rod Smith and his fumbling problems. I don't want to bring him up.
I get that, but I mean just size-wise.
Sure. Yeah, Rod was big.
Yeah, he was a very big guy. And so I think that's really cool. We haven't had big backs we haven't, not really since Beanie Wells and Rod, let's just take away Rod. Not since Beanie Wells, we haven't had a big back. We haven't.
Yeah, and it's CJ, and you're right. With the Ohio State running back depth, this was a need. Especially if Quinshawn decides to go to the draft, which, we don't know what his decision-making is going to be. He probably won't announce that until after the season is fully done anyway. But to get someone who has proven production, as you mentioned, and not just proven production, but proven production at a P4 program, in the Big 12. So it's good to have someone out there that they can lean on while James Peoples continues to get some carries. They get Sam Williams-Dixon back there as well. But again, he hasn't done a whole lot. They were only going to have 3 scholarship running backs. So we knew they were going to have to get someone in the portal. And I think Donaldson's a really good guy that they can get who, since he's that bigger guy, he can be a goal line threat. He can be a 3rd and short threat, which Ohio State, in years past, this year they've done a better job of converting on 3rd and short, 4th and short scenarios. But having a guy like him also really helps that. So I think he's a really solid guy to bring in, and I'm glad they were able to land him. Now,
734 yards, 11 touchdowns, 4.5 a carry.
Yep.
Yeah, you can work with that.
You definitely can work with that. I don't know how much you know about Logan George, the kid from Idaho State. He's moving up a level. His production, wasn't great as a freshman. Sophomore got a little bit better, 5.5 sacks. To me, he's more of a depth piece, rotational guy because, we talked about how the recruiting classes really haven't been all that strong up front. They've been lacking just straight up numbers. They don't have enough guys back there. So I think this is a good kind of stopgap piece. I don't think he's going to play a ton, but he's a guy who they can bring in for injuries. They can bring him along in some of those early season games that aren't Texas next year. Those non-conference matchups that aren't super great, teams that they're playing, so he can get some experience. I think it's a solid get. I'm not jumping out of my chair for him like I am for
Right.
Donaldson, but what do you think?
So when I saw that he had committed, and it wasn't a lot, nothing, no news on like on threes. Not talking about, no one's talking about it. But then I went on, went on ESPN, looked at what he did. Didn't look at any of his highlights or anything. But this is the only thought I had on it. There's a reason they offered him. They saw something in him, in his tape from his sophomore season, that was worth giving him a scholarship. He's not walking on. So I
No.
mean, it's
he's a decently sized dude too. He's 6'5",
yeah.
259, and he can play inside and outside. I mean, they'll probably use him a little bit more
50
on the edge,
50 plus tackles. I mean, I think 20. Yeah, if I remember, he had
Yep, he had
24 solo,
53 tackles. Yep, 5.5 sacks. He's
so
a decent pickup.
yeah. It's gonna be interesting to see. Like, we'll see when we see him. But they offered him for some reason.
Yeah,
and I'll stand behind it.
Yeah, and I know you're really excited about Claire. Max Claire, #1 tight end in the transfer portal, coming out of Purdue. So Ohio State got to see him up close and personal. And he's a big guy who can run too. He's 6'4", 240. He's got really good hands. He averaged 13.4 yards a catch this season for the Boilermakers. And it's not like Purdue's offense was scoring 25 points a game or anything like that. He was in a rough situation. Purdue was by far the worst team in the Big Ten. And he was their best offensive player, I think. He was their best weapon. So to add a guy like him to a tight end room that doesn't really have a whole lot of depth, I think is big. And maybe it's a sign that they're actually going to use the tight end a little bit more, because we've talked about in the past with Ryan Day's offense how it's not a focal point of their passing attack. So you get a guy like Claire coming in who, he'll be a junior. So he's got, we'll see if he plays well enough next year, he's probably gone to the league, but, we might get 2 years out of him. And, and he's not just a good receiver too. He can block a little bit too.
Yeah.
So, I think he's a great pickup, and, pickup not a lot of people expected when the portal opened for Ohio State to grab.
Yeah. When he got into the portal, some Ohio State fans were like, yeah, we would love to have him. But I didn't think there was any chance we were going to get him. I truly didn't. If I'm being completely honest here, I thought he was going to Ann Arbor, because it would make sense, or somewhere or Pitt State, somewhere that makes sense.
Well, they're too broke now. They're going to pay Underwood, gazillion
dollars. Yeah, bro. They paid a king's ransom, bro. They're broke. Yeah. They're broke as hell now. But he's light on his feet. He can make guys miss at his size, which is really cool. I'm not going to say that he's as good as Colston Loveland, but that's who he reminds me of. He's the guy that can make guys miss. And he's light on his feet, really good at route running. Like you said, he can block. And just like thinking about next year, I'm of the mindset that next year, if Ryan Day can with Julian Sand, he's going to revert a little bit more back to how he used to, like his seasons with CJ Stroud, if he's able to do so. Because, dude, if you're telling me that there's no way you can tell me that Ryan Day has Julian Sand, Carnell Tate, Jeremiah Smith, Brandon Ennis, Mylan Graham, and Max Claire, and he ain't going to throw that ball.
Yeah. Oh, I will say this. That one throw Sand had on Saturday was not great. That was a dirter. He missed him 5 yards short. It was ugly. That was ugly.
Yeah, that throw looked like a guy who's been sitting in the cold all day and had to go throw the. That's what it looked like.
Yeah.
That's what
no, but like. your point's well taken. Next year, whoever the quarterback's going to be, whether it's Sand, Tavian St. Clair, whoever, Claire's a good guy to get, because a brand new quarterback coming in with no starting experience, tight end's a security blanket. And to have a guy like this come in with proven production, that's going to be huge for a guy that is going to be a first-time starter, no matter who it is. So, it's a great pickup and one again. And like you mentioned, it's good to have them not go up to Ann Arbor. Keep them away from there. Keep them away from the other Big Ten
I
schools.
don't know why they're upset that they're broke, Brian. Like, yeah,
I
y'all
know.
broke. Y'all
Hey,
broke.
if you want them to not be broke, donate. You can donate their NIL funds. So obviously those portal commits were great today, but there's still another game to play, and it's a rematch of a game that I think you and I both think Ohio State probably should have won. So it was okay. Let me rephrase. I think they should have won. At
I
the end
think
of the
they could have
game,
won, should have.
Okay, you know what? Fair. I'll say that's fair. Regardless, we know these are two great teams.
Yeah.
And the way Ohio State played on Saturday and the way Oregon's been playing all season long, I don't think it's a stretch to say that this is a matchup of the two best teams in college football.
It's a national championship.
Yeah, and it's a shame that this has to happen in a semifinal, or not even in a semifinal, it's a quarterfinal.
Yeah.
And Ohio State, I know they're going to feel mighty confident coming into this game because of the smackdown they put on Tennessee and because of the fact that they played so well at Oregon and they only lost by 1. And this is going to be a neutral site game. Yeah, it's out west, it's the Rose Bowl, but there are going to be a lot more Ohio State fans in the Rose Bowl than there were in Eugene. So they're going to come in with a lot of confidence, and I think it's going to be a great game. What are your first thoughts about this rematch?
Anxious. I'm very anxious, man. Going to the playoff, I had Ohio State losing this week. I have Ohio State losing this game against Oregon. Honestly, I still do right now. A few people, ironically, Wolverine fans, they think different. I have my co-host Bryce. He has Ohio State win the national championship. Talked to my buddy Lawson today. We're on the phone when I got off of work, and he's like, we're talking about the game. He's like, dude, y'all gonna beat Oregon. He says, I just don't. He says, I don't see it. Even after 13-0, Big Ten champ, he goes, I don't see it.
Okay, and let me be clear. Yeah. If Ohio State plays like they did on Saturday against Tennessee,
they're winning.
There is not a team that can beat them.
No,
plain and simple.
Yeah, and where our conversation went was, I told him, what I saw last week or this past Saturday out of our offensive line, that is the exception. It is not the rule right now. I gotta do it. If I have to see it against Oregon. I have to see it against Oregon. I think Oregon's defensive line is better than Tennessee's. I really do.
I think at the very worst, it's equal. I think
at the worst, yeah, I would agree with that. Now, I think we can pass all over them.
Yeah, they did the first matchup.
Yeah, I mean, dude, their DBs are 5'9". They're all 5'9". They're just too small. But where our conversation led to was just basically this: if both teams play their A game, Ohio State wins by 10.
Yeah, and look, I don't think you're crazy for having for your initial thought being Oregon winning this game. They're the number 1 team in the country for a reason. They're undefeated. They've already beaten Ohio State, so I don't think it's a crazy take.
It's hard. In my heart of hearts, I think we're going to win in my heart of hearts. In my heart of hearts, I think we're going to win.
Sure.
But,
my initial, and this is just my initial thought, still a week and a half out. I wrote it this morning. I had Ohio State winning 38-35. And that's just a very early gut feeling. And like you mentioned, they could throw on them. I mean, the first game, Howard was 28-35 for 2 tutties. And
he was great.
Quite frankly, that had been the best game that he played up to this year. And he also had a rushing touchdown too. So, this team, it's very hard to pin down now how Ohio State is going to play because now we've seen them at their best, and they hadn't been at their best all season. This was the game where they were to put all of the pieces together offensively, defensively against the Vols. And like I mentioned, if they play like that against Oregon in the Rose Bowl, I don't think it's to be particularly – well, you know what? It might be close in the fourth quarter, but then they're going to pull away. They will win this game. There's not a team out there that can beat them with the talent going at full blast like they did on Saturday. But the question is whether or not they can keep playing like that. –
Ryan, I'll tell you what, dude. I'll tell you what, my guy. I'll tell you what, man. I'll tell you what, dude. I'll tell you what, my guy. I'll tell you what, dude. I'll tell you what, dude. I'll tell you what, my guy. I'll tell you what, dude. I'll tell you what, my guy. I'll tell you what, dude. I'll tell you what, my guy. 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 I'll tell you what, my gu if you honestly ask me what I think about this game and if we're gonna win, it's probably more so yes, and this is why. I go back. I told you before. Like I hate pinning games on single players. I really do. That week against Oregon, everyone everyone not named Burke together gave up 162 yards, and he gave up 178. Now there was something, and over the past few weeks, and it was very much so this past Saturday, Jermaine Matthews was on the field a lot.
Jermaine Matthews played really well. But you know what? The entire secondary did. Burke did too. Burke played well.
Denzel Burke is not 8 for 8, 178 yards bad. He is not. I refuse to believe that he is that bad. Yep. And I think that the Ohio State defense, because mind you, both teams did not play their A game. They didn't. But Ohio State's secondary, if they played 5% better, we win that game. I truly believe that. I just can't see I can't see our defensive line playing that bad again. I can't see our linebackers playing that bad. Like, remember, Sonny Styles is not the same linebacker he was early in the season. He's not.
Now you can tell me that you don't see them playing that bad again, which I agree with. But I can also see Oregon's offense being really good because they are a really good offense. They're a good team. And so I think you and I are both on the same page. You know, this is going to be a close game. I think it's going to be close throughout. Yes. I do not think it's going to be a blowout like it was on Saturday. I mean, I didn't see 42-17, but, you know, I did see a comfortable victory. I do not see a comfortable victory for either team in this game. It's going to be I wouldn't say it's going to be a rock fight because I do think it's going to be high scoring, but it is going to be a dog fight. And I think whatever team wins is going to be coming out of the game pretty exhausted coming into the semifinal matchup against probably Texas.
I think whoever wins this game is winning the national championship.
I tend to agree with you.
What I saw out of Texas this past weekend, I was listening to I forgot who he was talking to, but I was listening to Colin Cowherd this morning when I was at work, and he was talking about the Clemson game and how they passed. And he said, if Clemson is passing on you like that, God, I don't want to see what Oregon and Ohio State are going to do to you.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I'm just not a believer in the SEC this season.
No, I mean, I know you saw Georgia. You know, Carson Beck's out. You know, he tore his UCL. He just had surgery, so if he's done, it's gonna be Gunnar Stockton.
Who but you know, winning that game?
Notre Dame. It's not gonna be close.
Me too.
And you know that Notre Dame IU game, I did not expect. I didn't expect it to be that lopsided. I know you did.
Okay.
I did not. So that was a little bit of a surprise to me. And I know you also thought SMU was going to get their doors blown off. And I had picked that as, the one possible upset until James Franklin proved otherwise. And he proved otherwise.
He's about to get 2 top 10 wins the easy way. Easy way.
Yeah. But turning back to this Oregon game.
Yep.
A couple things do concern me. I don't think Ohio State has the better coach in the matchup. I think Dan Lanning, I think he's better than Ryan Day, especially in these late game situations. I mean, we saw the last. Sure, yes, but what we've seen so far this season for Lanning is he has grown from that season. I mean, they're undefeated. Like I said, that intentional 12-man on the field penalty against Ohio State in the first matchup. Yep. Showing that Ryan Day did not tell Will Howard, hey, you got to get down on this scramble to make sure we've got enough time for a field goal. It's little things like that add up in a game that is going to be, I think, really, really close. So that concerns me. The field goal kicking definitely concerns me. In a game like this, it could come down to special teams, and I am still very worried about Jaden Fielding. So that's concerning.
Just don't kick. Punt or score touchdowns. Or go for it.
It'd be great if they were good enough to not need to kick again. That would be great. I don't know if that'll be the case. And then, the offensive line needs to show me that they can do it again with a rotation. it sounds like based on what Ryan Day had to say today on his Zoom availability, they're going to
Mhm.
continue with a rotation. And I didn't think it was going to be a true rotation like it was, and it was a
Yeah,
rotation. They moved those guards in and out.
and
It
it
sounds
didn't
like they're going to
matter.
do this. Yeah. And it sounds like they're going to do the same thing this week, which scares the hell out of me because in the first matchup, Mateo Uiagalelei had his way on the outside. I know that was more
Yep.
on the tackles, and that was more when Josh Simmons went down. But they've got dudes up front who
Derek
can,
Harmon. Yep.
yeah, they've got dudes who can cause issues, and that
It-
is a concerning thing for me, especially, um, you know, in a matchup where two teams are so evenly matched. That
yeah.
the trenches typically dictate who wins games like that.
And Oregon's defensive line, it mirrors Ohio State's. Very big edge players and very athletic, big defensive tackles. Yeah, it's if I had to call a score right now, I'd probably be around. I would be around 35-28. That's what I would be around.
Okay.
If Ohio State's defense plays to the level that they can, and if Jim Knowles is scheming that type of stuff up, I I'd, I would lean to them not getting over 30. I would lean to Ohio State doing like playing very well in that. Oregon also, I mean, Oregon also still struggles against the run. So yeah, I think this is gonna be a really good game. I'm very excited. This is the
Me
game.
too.
I we didn't get it in the Big Ten championship, but we every Buckeye fan wanted this matchup again. We
I was
wanted
gonna
these
ask.
guys
I
again.
was gonna ask you if you were hoping for a rematch here in the college football playoff after they didn't get it the Big Ten title. I
Yeah,
wanted. I wanted to know
I
if you
needed it.
wanted Oregon again.
I needed it.
Okay.
I needed it. I, I've said this from the get go. And if Notre Dame wins, which I think they're going to, fine.
Yeah.
But there's a few teams where rent is due. Oregon's one of them, and Georgia's one of them. Those are two teams that I really want to beat. And they can go out there with Boo Boo the Foo at quarterback. I wouldn't care. I just want to see us beat them.
Yeah.
But
What's interesting is the line opened up. It was Ohio State favored by 1, and the over/under was 53, which I thought was incredibly
that's
low
low. That's
for how
low.
these teams are. And now I just checked, according to DraftKings, the spread's already moved up in towards Ohio State. It's now 2.5. Ohio State's favored. The over/under is 55, which I still think is
Mhm.
low. I
Well, you
think
said three. You said 3.5.
it's 2.5, and
2.5.
the over/under is 55, which I'll probably grab that over regardless. Once we're done here, but I think this is a game that is going to showcase
Mm,
two good offenses. I think, look, as good as Ohio State's defense is, like I said, I think they're the best defense in the country right now.
mm.
But I think Oregon might be, in totality, the best offense in the country. With everything they've got, with the offensive line, the quarterback play, the way they're able to run the
Tight
ball.
end. Yeah.
Exactly. Now, obviously, Ohio State can put up exceptionally good offensive performances as they did on Saturday night. But as far as consistency goes, I think Oregon is the gold standard in college football this year on offense. And it's going to take a really strong effort from Jim Knowles and those guys to hold them not just under 20 points, under 30 points, because they didn't do that in the first matchup either.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I expect Ryan Day to, or no, I expect Ryan Day to throw the ball a lot. I expect him to throw the ball a lot, and
Yep.
I mean, first off, man, you're in Pasadena. It's gonna be good weather out there. Uh, and also, I mean, and this is a stadium that's familiar to Ohio State, and it's familiar to everyone on this team, or all the seniors on this team, the juniors on this team. They've played in that stadium. They've been there. We saw probably the greatest Rose Bowl performance of all time in that game with JSN.
Mm.
But I'm really excited to see that. I love the Rose Bowl. I think it's really cool the way it worked out, so that it looks like you
Old
got
Pac-12 and
I love that. I love that, man.
yeah.
Yeah, but
Saw this comment about Gabriel's running. Nico kind of ran on us, but he couldn't throw. Thoughts? So Nico was able to run the ball because, as we mentioned earlier in the show, there was no one open downfield. Ohio State did an exceptional job of locking down the receivers, and the defensive line really got after him and forced him out of the pocket, where he kind of, his first instinct, because he's a freshman, is to look down and then run. He's not keeping his eyes downfield to find the receivers that are open. Dillon Gabriel's a veteran. He's played a lot of college football. This is sixth year out there.
Let's be frank. Those wide receivers are not Oregon's.
Correct. I mean, Tez Johnson, we talk a lot about Jeremiah. He's their Jeremiah Smith. Tez Johnson is one of the best wide receivers in the country. He is going to be a tough cover. And I am going to be interested to see if they keep Burke on him or if they move Igbinosun over there. Or, switch him up. Maybe give him some Jermaine Matthews reps or Jordan Hancock. I'm interested to see how they handle those defensive coverages. I want to see how much man-to-man they play versus zone. And
if you ask me who you put on Evan Stewart, I would say you start Jermaine Matthews.
I don't think they're going to. Jermaine. Yeah. But, as far as Gabriel running the football, I think that is going to be somewhat of an issue. I don't think it's going to be the primary way that they're going to want to attack Ohio State, but they definitely have to keep them in the pocket. I wouldn't be surprised to see them use a spy. Sonny may spy on him a bit. And also, I think that's where pressure comes in. I think they're going to bring Cody Simon, Sonny Styles in on some pressure where they can fill those run gaps to the inside. If JT and Jack are going on the outside, those, A and B gaps are going to be open. So they're going to have to bring those linebackers in to fill those gaps to make sure that Gabriel can't run up the middle when the pocket does start to collapse on the outside.
Yeah, and also you're going to see a lot. I think you're going to see a lot of like with them bringing pressure. I think you're also going to see a lot of zone from them also. Oregon's not the type of team you want to play a lot of man on because they're running short routes, they're running screens, they're doing all that. Yep. And you probably don't. You're probably
they got guys who can get a lot of yak.
There's really there's only real. Evan Stewart is the only deep threat they have. The only real deep threat they have.
I mean, Tez can go deep, but a lot of his stuff is like a lot of his big gains are after the catch.
Yeah, and so I'm gonna be honest. I mean, I don't want Ransom holding anybody up, but I wouldn't be mad that if in the slot, depending on where he is, you bring Caleb down. I mean, Caleb, dude, he's the best offensive player on our team.
Oh yeah, I mean it's not close.
So,
I think it's going to be a really fun matchup to watch. This is like we mentioned before. I think these are the two best teams. I agree with you. I think whoever comes out on top is going to win the Natty because, I think the only other team that can
they are going to be beat up. You are right about that, though. They are going to be tired out of that. That's going to be an emotional game for both those teams.
I'll tell you this: if Arizona State somehow upsets Texas and the winner of this game gets Arizona State, that's easy shoe-in for the national championship thing for one of these two teams because Arizona State cannot handle these guys.
No,
either one of these teams.
And I don't. Texas is the only team right now that could beat these two. Georgia can't. Penn State.
I think Notre Dame can give them a game.
No. Oh no! Not with Riley Leonard at quarterback. Not with Riley Leonard at quarterback.
I don't think Texas can either because Texas's offense is not very good right now. I know they put up 38 against Clemson. Clemson's defense is not Ohio State's defense, or even Oregon's defense.
I hate seeing Quinn play like this, man. Quinn should have stayed. He should have stayed with us.
Yeah, or he should have left.
Probably should have come back. The development would have been much better.
Yeah. Well, now here we are. So
we got Will Howard, so I'm not tripping.
Exactly. Anything else you want to cover before we get out of here?
Oh man, I forgot to start the show by saying this. How firm thy friendship, Ryan?
Yeah. Ohio, baby. Let's go.
There we go.
So yeah, I think that wraps it up for us tonight. We'll be back with you on Thursday, since that is the day after Christmas. So no holiday breaks here for us, but we will be back for that, for the call-in show. Bring your comments. We want to hear from you guys. It's your show driven by you guys. I'm sure we'll talk about some more news that'll be popping up between now and then, but we'll definitely want to hear from you guys. But until then, OH.
IO.